greatest Bay Area athlete ever. This is dedicated to our dear friend Ann Killian, columnist for the SF Chronicle, who recently wrote a very thought-provoking article. She said that Steph Curry is now the greatest Bay Area athlete ever in the most respectful way possible. My dad and I are going to gently disagree, but this is a great conversation, and we want to thank Ann for giving us the opportunity and the idea.
Yeah, Annie, it's Lowell talking to you. I read your column with great enjoyment about Steph. It's essentially overtaking Joe Montana as the greatest Bay Area athlete ever. And you're going to know this term I'm using. That column is a talker. It's a talker, meaning which is what a really good columnist that you are, Annie, wants to do, get people talking. So on Father's Day night, the family got together and Iggy and I were talking about it and I said, it'd be fun to talk about this on our show on Tuesday. I have some different conclusions from you, but it's not to rebut you or to put you down. It's that you got me thinking. So thank you. And I'll see you for dinner soon. So let me just preface it this way, Iggy. Annie made 2 points. One, who is the most impactful and popular athlete in Bay Area history? And she said probably Steph, and I could see that. But she also used the phrase greatest, the greatest, a lot of times. And to me, a synonym for the greatest is the best.
Agreed.
And she said Curry has overtaken Joe Montana as the greatest. So how do you want to go about this? Should we first talk about Curry and Joe, or should we talk about other candidates, or how would you like to do it?
I would like to talk about other candidates. The Curry versus Montana debate is very intriguing. And there is a very good argument, a very good conversation to have there. But I think that's the second part. To me, I don't think either one is the greatest athlete in Bay Area history.
I agree.
So it was interesting. She put it between these two guys who are in the Mount Rushmore. Maybe they're in the top 4, but top 2, I wouldn't put either one in. To me, the top 2 athletes in Bay Area history are Jerry Rice and Willie Mays.
I agree.
The greatest football player of all time and the greatest baseball player of all time.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Iggy. I agree with those 2 names, by the way.
Yeah.
Which means that when Joe was on the team with Jerry, he wasn't even the best player. Jerry was.
Sorry. I mean, Joe was great, but Jerry was greater.
Who do you put number 1, Jerry or Willie?
I can't say. I didn't see Willie Mays play. I'd have to put Jerry, but I didn't see Willie Mays. You tell me. You saw him.
Yeah. I'd say no question Willie Mays.
Okay.
The greatest professional athlete that I believe ever played in the Bay Area is Willie Mays. Now, some people say, well, he was from New York. He spent a lot of time out here.
I looked it up. He was here from 1958 to 1972.
That's a long time.
He was 27 years old and stayed until he was 41.
And he hit a lot of home runs, and he had to do it in the howling wind of Candlestick Park. And in terms of being a center fielder, I don't think there was anybody like him. You could say maybe Babe Ruth was better, but you're talking about athletes from different eras. Maybe Hank Aaron, he was a great player, but I think it's generally agreed that Willie Mays is the greatest.
Also, with him and Jerry, they both played they were both dominant immediately, and they played until they were 41, 42.
So I do it, Willie Mays. This is my order, okay? Willie Mays, then after that would be Jerry Rice, then after that would be Joe Montana, then after that would be Steph Curry. That's my order. And listen, we're talking about slivers of difference, okay? Yes. In terms of greatness, slivers.
Yes. Now, what I want to say is the argument, Curry is making this an argument to his credit. He's putting himself in the conversation. I would put him top 4. Everyone's wondering about Barry Bonds. I'm not putting Barry Bonds in here. He cheated. Sorry. He could have been, but he's not. He cheated. Sorry. That's how I feel. Let's talk about what?
Well, Barry Bonds can't get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Sorry. He was great until he cheated. Okay. Let's talk about Curry versus Montana. What's really interesting is Curry's resume is right there. Montana won 4 rings in 9 years. Curry won 4 in 8. Very similar. And, Montana's final year as the Niners starter, he was 34. Curry's 34. So if their careers ended right now, you maybe say, if Steph's career ended right now, maybe you go with Joe, but Steph could keep going. Steph isn't done. Steph might be the kind of guy who plays until he's 41 like Jerry Rice because he can freaking shoot and his game isn't dependent on athleticism at all.
Okay. Here's what I want to say. It's harder to win in the NFL than the NBA. I think it's harder.
Yeah.
The NBA, there's 5 guys on the floor.
You can keep them together and have like a core, a team. But in the NFL, you're constantly changing and guys getting hurt and you have to reload. It's hard.
And you have to coordinate 11 guys.
It's true. 22.
Well,
defense too.
Well, but I'm talking about the offense because of Joe.
That's true.
You have to coordinate 11 guys.
Yeah.
And I know Bill Walsh had a big part in that, but Steve Kerr has a big part in what Curry's doing.
Yeah.
So I think it's harder. And again, for me, as good as the Warriors are, and they're the toast of the town right now, whatever town it is. The Niners are always a bigger story.
Yeah, it's true.
They are. The Niners are a bigger story than the Warriors. I've always felt, and this is a prejudice that I have, that the NBA is killing time between football and baseball. It's the fill-in sport. And now, of course, it goes on forever. But so I think what Joe accomplished is harder and is more. Am I putting down Curry? No. But there's another point. Joe is not the greatest football player who ever lived, but he might be the greatest quarterback who ever lived. It is no question in my mind that Stephen Curry is not the greatest basketball player who ever lived.
No, but he might be the greatest point guard who ever lived.
We'd have to talk about that. Let's first do greatest player, then talk about greatest point guard. Is he the greatest player who ever lived?
Not yet. But again, he could play until he's 40 and maybe he'll be the all-time leading scorer the way Kareem was. But not yet. Not yet. I would say it's probably Michael Jordan or LeBron James. Those two have had, I mean, LeBron is going to end up playing until he's 40 and having better numbers than Michael Jordan. But Michael Jordan was extremely dominant from like 23 to 35.
Okay.
Those two guys. Yeah.
So at least those two guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then
there are others that play different positions that you'd have to think about. Bill Russell. You'd have to think
Bill Russell.
Abdul-Jabbar.
Yep.
They play different positions, but you'd have to think about. So here we have, for me, Willie Mays is the greatest baseball player ever. And I got to tell you, Iggy, it's very hard to hit a pitch ball. It
is. I tried. I was not good at it. It was very hard. It's the hardest thing to do.
It's much harder than shooting a three-pointer.
I think it's harder. I didn't play quarterback, but I think it's probably also harder than playing quarterback.
Yeah. So, okay. Where are you going with this?
I don't know. I think we made all the points. To me, I guess it's interesting.
No, we're going to talk about best point guard.
Well, I just want to say I think there's a lot of interesting parallels between Montana and Curry. They both kind of changed the game. Montana made the short pass popular. Steph made the 3-point shot popular. They're both sort of point guards, in a sense.
Yes.
They both are. They're both not the most physically gifted at their position ever, but they were magical.
Yes.
Very similar. Anyway.
One difference is maybe personality. Joe is shy.
Yeah.
And he can seem standoffish, although I don't know that he is. Yeah. But he can seem it. Yeah. And Curry is an extrovert. Yeah. He's charming and he's available. He doesn't seem to have a superstar ego. And that is something that is really, really endearing about him. Is he potentially the best point guard ever? And who's in the running with him?
Well, I mean, Magic Johnson was always considered the greatest point guard ever. Curry's tough because he plays both positions. He's so good at shooting, and Draymond Green is so good at passing that there's large parts of the game where Curry's running around and doesn't have the ball. So it's like, what do you call him? I think what people are starting to call him is the greatest offensive player of all time because he's clearly the best shooter of all time, and he's a great passer. It's just that he shares that responsibility with Draymond. I don't know.
The two that I would put up against him, and I'm not saying they're better. Magic Johnson was really something, although he was not a scorer. I don't even think he had a jump shot, really.
No.
Yeah. So,
and he played on great teams. I think the Lakers won like 47 games the season before he was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other, and this, some people watching wouldn't even know, Oscar Roberson. He has a higher scoring average than Curry, and he didn't play with the 3-point shot Maybe he did at the end. I don't know. But basically, and he's about a point higher, and a bigger, tougher, better defender. I think Magic was a better. Mark Jackson said the other day that Curry has improved on defense, and he said he's not a lockdown defender. That was his phrase, but he's a good defender. I have a feeling Magic and Oscar Robertson were lockdown defenders. And you know what?
Magic was not. Magic was not. Magic was not. He never made an all defensive team. He never did. He never did. Interesting, right? Jordan was.
Yes.
Yeah. But Magic was not. Absolutely not.
Interesting. Thank you. So in any event, I'm not saying that those guys were better than Curry and if he goes on and has more wonderful years, sure, call him the greatest point guard ever. I'm not fighting about that. I just wanted to understand the context. And I guess John Stockton too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just want to point out, like, a lot of times a point guard, to really see how great they are, you got to give them a center or someone that they can dump the ball to down low for easy assists. Like Magic Johnson had Kareem. They kind of went together. John Stockton had Karl Malone. Now, Steph had Draymond, who doesn't score at all. He had Andrew Bogut, who doesn't score. What if he had Shaq or Amari Stoudemire or Kevin Garnett or Tim Duncan? He might have had a lot more assists, but he was passing it to Clay.
Good point.